September 29th.
Oh, it was
I don't think it was.
August. No, July. July 29th.
The questionably reliable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the Stellafane convention for 2022 was held in Springfield, Vermont, and it was July 29th to the 31st. That's a amateur astronomer convention, and it's 3 nights of observing, and we camp out, and they have lots of talks and activities. And the main thing is the telescope competition, where people who built their own telescope get judged and get awards. Oh, there we are. Okay, it's yeah, to get there, you go right up Route 91, and exit 7 in Vermont is the Springfield exit that leads to the convention. And as we went through Springfield, you can see the road was wet. We had a little shower. And this is the stone church. That's sort of a landmark in the middle of Springfield. And you can see it's about 10 minutes to 3. But we stopped at the grocery store. So by the time we got to convention, the rain had stopped. And this is the registration table and the entrance. The road just ahead on the right leads to Breezy Hill, where they have the telescope competition. And you go straight ahead. On the left is the camping area and all the other facilities. Let's see. And here we are unloading the 25-inch telescope. As we were taking everything out of the trailer, we had a brief shower that turned into a downpour and soaked everything. But then we eventually got it to get it set up and covered, because we had an appointment or a reservation at 6 o'clock for dinner. And here I am finishing loading the ramps back into the trailer, and I'm half soaked. Changed my shirt before we went to dinner. And this is our group at dinner. That's on the left is Dan Wright, then me, Michael Southam, and Carl Nilsson. And then Rob, who's a friend of Phil's, and Phil Harrington, Carl Lancaster, and Brian Kennedy. While we were at dinner, there was a really big downpour. It must have been an inch of rain. And luckily, we were inside the whole time. And by the time we finished dinner, it had ended. Yeah. Yeah, so Thursday night, it partially cleared up. I tried to use the 25-inch telescope, but it was sticking, and I discovered that the sling for the mirror had come off, so I thought that was getting caught. So we were able to get that back on with some help from Dan, and then it was still sticking, and it turned out it was the cable for the altitude motor, where it wraps around this drum 3 times. It was overlapping, and that was causing it to jam up. Also, the dew heaters stopped working. It went completely dead. So we sort of gave up at that point. Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. We set up, this is our canopy at our campsite. This is Friday morning, and that's Dan, Carl, Brian, and Michael. And we set this up after dinner, so it didn't have to go through that big rainstorm. And here is the observing field. This is Friday morning. The telescope on the left, I believe, is John Voigt's telescope, which is a 32-inch. I think the ours on the far right. Oh, does it? Yeah. Oh, okay, that's ours. And this is the 32-inch.
Yeah, I used it. So what Carl's saying is that at night, Al was night vision, eyepiece on it. So I looked at that, using Swan, it was like an M17. It was sick. It was so crazy. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it was shockingly cool.
Imagine cheers.
Yeah, right. I mean, Carl says imagine having it at Cherry Springs, but you know, the skies in Stellafane are not great dark, but dark enough, a lot darker than Westport, and that was amazing. So it was shocking to see that.
Okay, and this is our 25-inch telescope, and I was able to get the cables straightened out, and then after that they worked okay. And I took the cover off of the control box for the dew heaters. I discovered that I'd forgotten that there was a circuit breaker in there. So if it gets shorted, it will trip the circuit breaker. And so I reset the circuit breaker, and then I checked all the connectors to make sure there were no shorts, and it seemed to work okay after that. So then Friday night, it worked pretty well. And this is where they sell T-shirts and hats at Stellafane. Also raffle tickets. And this is the food tent. There's a large tent with a dining area under it, tables and chairs. And the building behind it is the permanent building for the food vending. And it was open longer hours. You could actually get dinner there on Thursday. In the past, they didn't open that early. And this is our campsite with the canopy, and we have the banners up, the WAS banner, and the fish skeleton, whatever that is.
That's the flying spaghetti monster flying awesome sauce.
Okay. Okay, so Friday afternoon, there were a few lectures, and this one was titled, "I Want to Believe, Returning to the Age of Reason" by Dean Regas, who runs an observatory in Cincinnati, and they have a 16-inch Clark telescope. And he talked about conspiracy theories, things like the 2012 end of the world, a sudden pole shift between the North and South poles, Area 51, and astrology. And he talked quite a bit about the Flat Earth Society, and his best argument against Flat Earth is when the sun sets, where does it go? Because we see it actually go down. And this is Phil Harrington and 3 other gentlemen who each have been, this was their 50th time at Stellafane. And they gave them each a shirt with the 50th.
It was Caitlin Roulette that did the shirts. That's her right there. She is a 13 or 14-year-old, just amazing kid who is really going to be, I mean, a lot of people are looking at her to be like the future of women astronomy. I mean, she does so much outreach. She's an interesting kid. She's going to write for our newsletter soon. So it'd be great to have her there. But yeah, she put all this stuff together. I can't hear something. Maybe you can hear me a little better there. But it's Caitlin Roulette. She's a 13 to 14-year-old kid who is just amazing. So, but she made those T-shirts, those shirts, for the 3 of the guys that are celebrating the 50th anniversary of Stellafane.
Isn't she the same one that had a newsletter? I guess the year before last.
That's right. So she writes a newsletter herself, I think called Starry Scoop. And so she's going to put some parts of that in our newsletter. So she's going to contribute to that too. So it'd be great to have Caitlin in there. It's a great kid. I'll get a chance to meet her.
Okay, and the next talk was about Operation Moonwatch. And it wasn't about looking at the moon. It was citizen science at the dawn of the space age. And volunteers would set up in a line with these fairly wide field telescopes that had about a 2.5 degree field, and watch for a satellite to pass over to get the positions of and orbits of the few satellites that were flying at that time. It was in the late 50s and the early 60s. And then Phil Harrington did a talk called Nights of Future Past.
It's a muddy blue reference.
Oh, okay. Mine is partially covered up here. And he talked about the history of amateur telescopes during the 20th century. At one time, a 6-inch Binoscope was like the optimum telescope you could get, what everybody wanted. And he talked about the prices. This was $195 at the time, but when you convert that into today's dollars, it's a few $1,000s. I didn't get the exact numbers, but and then these are Fecker telescopes. One is a Newtonian on a fork mount, and the other one is a different configuration with the eyepiece toward the bottom. And then an 8-inch for $400. And he also had a picture of the club in Stanford, the astronomy club in Stanford, where he went when he was a teenager. And this is Dan Wright wearing his shirt with Jesus riding a dinosaur. And in the background, you can see flying saucers. And on the lower right, there's a Sasquatch. Sort of a little of everything. Okay, on Friday night, they have a series of talks where anybody who wants to can give a 10-minute talk on any astronomy topic. And the first one was on how to make an inexpensive eyepiece case. And this uses a soft-sided lunchbox. And then the tray inside is made out of a inexpensive plastic cutting board with holes drilled in it. And Joe Rayo talked about an occultation of Mars that's coming up, where Mars is going to be occulted by the moon, and it's visible over most of the United States. If you're north of that yellow line, you'll be able to see it, which we are not.
South of that.
What?
South of that.
Yeah. So,
But that's a pretty big hill.
yeah, but we're still south of the whole thing. Okay, and then there was a talk on Webb's first look at the universe.
What was the date on that?
December 7th and 8th.
So not at CSP.
No.
No.
Okay.
Okay. And then they showed some pictures from the Stellafane's Schumann telescope. And that's the telescope in the Gregor Observatory, which is at the top of the observing field. It's a 13-inch telescope, and it's unobstructed, unlike a Newtonian, and it's got a lot of features. It can correct for the color fringes from the atmosphere when you're looking low in the sky. So this was a night of good viewing, and they got these nice pictures of Jupiter and Saturn. Yeah, yeah. And this is a picture of a crater on the moon, and on the full moon, you see this little crater near the top, and this is a close-up of that crater. Okay, this is Saturday morning, and we have the swap tables. And anybody who wants to can sell their surplus astronomy equipment. And lots of books for sale. Some of them rather old. The telescope, some mounts, various components and parts. And this is an aerial camera used for photographing the ground from an airplane with very large lenses. And he actually had two of these. One he sold intact, the other one he disassembled and was selling the lenses. It should be hard to imagine using the lenses.
Burning the ants.
That would work, yeah. And these are some bins full of parts, mostly knobs and some finder holders. Okay, let's see. Okay, this is the road leading over to Breezy Hill, where the pink clubhouse is located, and the telescope competition. And here we are approaching the pink clubhouse. And it looks rather sparse because what telescopes there are off to the right. This year, there are only about 11 telescopes in the competition. I think there's normally over 20,
20, 30.
20 to 30, yeah. Okay. A few comments about the awards. If you're a professional optician or if you've won a first place in the past, they have a separate category called Master Class. And so newcomers are not competing with those experts. So that gives the newcomers more of a chance to win a prize. And on the optical competition, there's several categories. This was a Newtonian that was less than 12.5 inches. So that was one category. There's another category for Newtonians larger than 12.5 inches. And another category for compound optics. And this year, there are only 3 telescopes entered in the optical competition. There were 2 in the Newtonian under 12.5 and 1 in the compound. So this won first place for the Newtonian under 12.5.
So they can give awards for the top 3.
They can. In this case, they only gave 1 award for the Newtonian. The other one guy did not win an award. So this guy won second place for mechanical design, first place for craftsmanship, and first place for the optical. And I have several more pictures. Here you can see the back of it. And he really decorated it a lot on all sides. And the tube is really smooth. It looks like it's aluminum painted with automotive paint, but it's actually a sonotube. And he spent a lot of time getting it perfectly smooth.
For those who don't know what a sonotube is.
Oh, it's a cardboard tube that's used for making, for pouring concrete to make columns or footings. And this shows the eyepiece, and you can see the detail on the bearing there, the moon-shaped bearing. Oh, I thought I had more. Okay, this is a binocular telescope. There are actually 2 separate entries here. The near one here is 2 Newtonian telescopes made into a binocular. And this one won second place for mechanical design in the master class. And you can see the eyepieces have prisms on them like binoculars, and you can rotate them to adjust the eye spacing. The dials on the bottom are, I think they're for focusing because there's no other way to focus, and it's marked millimeters. So I think you turn that to focus, and then you rotate the eyepiece assembly to adjust the spacing. Oh, I forgot to say. Oh, I did say that won second place for mechanical design. And the same person did this one. It's a 3.25-inch refractor binocular scope. And this won third place for mechanical design in the master class. So he got second and third place. And this one, each eyepiece has 2 60-degree diagonals to bring them closer together in parallel. And it looks like the two tubes can move closer and away from each other to adjust the eye spacing. I'm not sure if this knob on the side is how you adjust that, or that's for something else. But these are refractors. Okay. And this is a antique restoration. It won first place for antique restoration, and it was the only entry in antique restoration, but it's a beautiful job. It's a 4.5-inch f/19 refractor, and it was made in 1933 by Fecker. And the mount is really amazing. There, near the eyepiece, there are two knobs to do fine adjustment in declination and azimuth. The top knob goes to a gear that then goes down a shaft, and it moves a tangent arm to move it in declination. The bottom one goes to a gear that turns a big gear, that turns a little gear. Then there's a shaft to another gear and a right angle, and that goes to another tangent arm. So I'm not, it's amazing, yeah.
Oh, that's the original design. Was with those
Yeah.
colors.
He bought it from a college, and at some point someone had painted it, and some of the gears were painted to where they wouldn't turn anymore. So he did a lot of work cleaning it up. The tripod is actually part of the telescope, and it's a steel tripod. Here you can see the clock drive. I didn't see any weight, so it's probably spring driven. And the clock drive turns this little gear, which turns a large gear, which then turns this shaft to another gear that turns the worm gear that does the clock drive. And you can see the beautiful setting circles. This one is for right ascension, and the one on the right is for declination. Okay, this is an unusual telescope. It's a 6-inch f8 refractor, but the mount is an inverted fork mount. Normally, the fork would be attached to the mount and not to the telescope. The telescope would be in between the legs of the fork. This won third place for mechanical design. And here's a close-up. It's got a gear drive. This one is for the declination, so you would use that for slow motion control on the declination. And the other gear would be inside the base here. And these are Buyer's gear drives. So they have it's a combination gear drive and clutch. So you can push it into position and then have it move by the gear. And this was set up, this was pointed at the sun with a solar filter on it. Okay, this is a 4-inch f6 Dobsonian telescope. And the focus can be adjusted up to 6 inches. The top panel here slides forward and back, and that adjusts the focus. And because of that, if you want to use a bino viewer, which requires a lot of back focus, you can move it toward the back, and you're able to focus a bino viewer. If you want to use a simple eyepiece, to slide it toward the front, and you'll work with a simple eyepiece. That's cool. And here it shows somebody looking through it. This is a 10.5-inch f4.5 Dobsonian, and it's a carry-on. So it can be disassembled and put into a carry-on bag. It looks like the poles all are in 2 pieces, so they can come apart to fit in the case. This was actually 2 people entered this. One person made the mirror and entered it in the optical competition, and the other one made the rest of the telescope and entered the mechanical design. But it did not win anything. This one is a 12.5-inch f6, which is really long and skinny. And this was actually, I looked back in my records, and this was entered in the competition in 2018. And it did not win then, but it was just on display here. Here's some more pictures of it. That's the base. And I was wondering why this brace was not in the center of the bearing, but this brace is attached to the mirror cell. So that's why it's in this position. There's the top of it. Okay, these 2 girls entered in the junior category. They were the only entries in the junior, and they won first place for mechanical in the junior category. You have to be under 16 to enter junior. And they did a nice job painting it with nebulas and stars. Okay, and this one is not a telescope, it's a spectrohelioscope. So when you look at this, you don't see an image of the sun, you just see a band of light with lines in it. And it won the special category award. And the light comes in the top. I believe this is like a telescope, and then there'd be a slit in this position, and then a diffraction grating down here that reflects the light up into the eyepiece. And I looked through it, and what I saw was like a blue strip with lines in it. And this sticker is showing what the views look like. Okay, this is a 6-inch f20 Dahl-Kirkham telescope. And this is sort of like a Schmidt-Cassegrain, except there's no corrector plate, is that right? So there's a mirror at the back that focuses the light onto a secondary mirror, which is also curved, that focuses the light back to the eyepiece. And these have very long focal length. So f20 would be a 10-foot long focal length. So it's good for planetary or high magnification. And this one first in optical for compound telescope category. And it was the only one in the compound category. Okay, this one is a 5.1-inch f5 compact telescope for hiking. It's like you can carry it in your backpack. It won first place in mechanical design in the master class, first place for craftsmanship in the master class, and innovative component for ultralight compact system. And the pictures of this one are from the Stellafane website, because I didn't take any pictures of it. And this is the telescope assembled. It all fits in that plastic case except for the poles. The poles are actually hiking poles. So they're compact and lightweight. And so besides the poles, there are 3 cables that stabilize it. And there's a light baffle to prevent stray light coming into the eyepiece. Looks very clever. And this is it, packed up. It weighs 3 pounds, 2 ounces.
So cool. Right.
Here's the pink clubhouse. On the far right, you can see Carl Lancaster relaxing.
A lot of pictures like that.
And I almost missed this one. It was under a canopy on the other side of the clubhouse. This is a 10-inch f6.5 Dobsonian that's full CNC 3D printed. Won first place in mechanical design, second place in craftsmanship, and under innovative component, parametric design system. So the girl who did this analyzed it in a computer program at her college that analyzes mechanical structures. And a lot of telescopes have a truss system, but there's a system called a Surrey truss. And with a Surrey truss, you have one truss holding the front of the telescope, another truss holding the mirror. And they're designed so that if you put the telescope, say, horizontal, you always get a little bit of deflection. It is designed so that both the front and the back will deflect by exactly the same amount, and they'll stay parallel. So you stay perfectly collimated no matter what position it's in. And this was designed on this computer program, and it's also, the parameters can be adjusted, so you can change the size of the mirror and the F number, and it'll adjust the designs of all the components. And the fixtures that hold the poles are all printed on a 3D printer.
Is the
something that's been done before, and this is just like an implementation, or is this something that they can patent?
Well, the design is pretty basic. It's analyzed to optimize it. So
So not patentable.
I don't think so.
Same with-
Oh, Alex asked if this could be patented, and as far as I know, I don't think it can be because it's.
Not through experience, so it's totally related.
I didn't realize Alex was muted. Okay. Okay, there's the girl who did it. Clever. And this was her first telescope. Also, the first guy with the 8-inch that was all decorated, that was his first telescope. I think it's a wide view of the area of the telescopes, most of the telescopes. This was Saturday afternoon. They have some talks in their what's the name of that building? Now I can't. What?
What?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
building?
The big building where they give the talks.
Oh, well, I don't know what the, I can't remember.
Now I can't think of it. Anyway. This talk was on this talk was on how to build a CNC router for less than $1,000 and use it for various telescope making projects. It's a pretty advanced topic, and he used it to make parts for a telescope out of plywood. And it can also be used to do rough grinding of a mirror. It's pretty amazing. And this was a talk on the Stellafane Observing Olympics. The Observing Olympics, they've been doing it for a few years now, and they give you a list of 25 objects. And if you find 15 of them, you get a pin. And this was a talk by the guy who creates the list, and he talked about each of the objects. Oops. I had another.
Are you going to talk about the Olympics and the binocular Olympics too?
Yeah, they had two categories. There was also a binocular Olympics, where you would find things with binoculars, and Phil Harrington makes that list. And
The Flanders Pavilion, by the way.
Flanders Pavilion, that's it. I just had my mind went blank. So anyway, on Friday night, I was able to get 10 of the objects, and on Saturday I finished it. And some of them were fairly easy. There were 9 M objects, and there was a coat hanger. And one of the objects was a globular cluster in the Andromeda galaxy. And it was not G1, which is the brightest one. It was G78, which is the second brightest one. And it's after I had completed 15 objects, I went back and tried to get that one. I finally did get it.
I want to add though, just Michael Southam and Michael Southam found this in his 6-inch. So he saw this.
6-inch or 8-inch?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's an 8-inch. He had an 8-inch. And he saw it in that and spent, plenty of time trying to find it. But he did see that, and I saw it too.
Yeah.
And then you finally went back, and then you just in the 25, you went and confirmed finally. But it took you like 2 hours.
Oh yeah.
It took like 2 hours for Bob to find that. But he did find it. And I went to bed before you saw it in the 25. So I just saw it with Southam. But that's one of the Olympics, the binocular Olympics that Phil has put together now every year, and this is so much fun because it takes you off the beaten path. It is so much fun to go look at these objects that we always get stuck so many times looking at the Messier objects, the same old crap, same old stuff. And right, and so this is just awesome, and I hope they continue to do it because it is fun. Oh, yeah. So Michael or Alex had just asked, what kind of rules are there? Can you use a go-to mount? Can you, or, you know, do you get extra points for finding them, you know, without that? And anybody and everything, any way you find it is great.
Even if somebody else finds it, you look through their telescope, that counts.
Yeah.
And go-to, you don't have to use go-to.
And I really stunk it up on the binocular Olympics, but you know, Phil was right next to us. So when, you know, that really helps. And so, right, he made the list, so he's banging them out. But Carl and yeah, so, but we had, you know, a bunch of us, we had a nice group of binoculars all together down there. So we would all look through it and find it together and then move on to the objects together. So it was great. I mean, it was awesome to do that. And Phil has just done such a good job putting that list every year. That's very good.
Okay, and they've always had a barbecue chicken dinner on Saturday night, and last year they did not. I don't know, it was the scheduling. They had a new food vendor. They didn't do it last year, so this year they did it again on Saturday night. You had a choice of chicken or ribs. And after I saw the lecture that ended at 5:30, I went and got in line. I stood in line for an hour to get the dinner. And the chicken wasn't too bad, but the corn on the cob was something wrong. It was really tough. You couldn't even eat it. I had half an ear and only ate half of that.
The ribs weren't any good either.
So I'm hoping they do better on it next year. I'll try again next year. But most of the stuff from the food vendor was pretty good. And the Saturday night evening program, it's sort of an amphitheater, it's sort of a hillside where everybody sits, and they have a series of things. They start with the kids raffle, and then they have the adult raffle, then they give the awards for the competition, and then there's a shadowgram talk, which is sort of a talk designed to wait until it gets dark enough for slides. And then the main speaker was Deva Sobel. Well, before I do that, this is our part of our group here. That's Michael Southam, Carl Lancaster, and Brian Kennedy.
Yeah, Carl Nelson's sleeping over on the left there next to Southern.
Oh, there. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
Carl Nelson. Notice it. And this
That's Rob over there.
that's Rob, Phil's friend, and this is Elliot, who runs the observatory at Booth Park in Stratford.
Well, he runs the Discovery Museum.
Oh,
Planetarium.
okay,
And that's his wife's stuff.
okay.
Like that, so people can hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Elliot, and that's his wife, Steph. And he runs the planetarium at the Discovery Museum, in addition to doing the observatory in Stratford. An image of it? Oh, well. Oh, Shannon just said that Elliot got a picture of a Perseid meteor shower, and he showed it in the planetarium.
It looked like a blob.
Okay, and there's Dan, and this is Phil Harrington. This is my chair, which I'm not in. Picture. Oh yeah, Phil does the different captions in the calendar, things like holidays and special events. And this is looking toward the presentation screen. So the keynote speaker was Deva Sobel, and her topic was building the glass universe, and it was about the group of women at Harvard who did analysis of the glass photographic plates, and they put a prism in front of the telescope so that each star was a spectrum, and they would look at every star and classify it. And they made discoveries about redshift and star types and that kind of stuff. And she has a book on that topic. And here's where I got September, I think. The Connecticut Star Party is September 23rd to the 25th, 2022. We'll be taking the 25-inch telescope there. And next year's Stellafane will be August 17th to the 20th. Yeah, that should be a really good. They always schedule it on a weekend closest to the Perseid meteor shower and with a new moon. So this year we're 2 weeks away. So I don't know, August 17th is a little late. Is it normally like
Yeah, it's
the
like
14th?
12 is like the peak.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, there'll be plenty going on the 17th to the 20th.
Yeah.
There's plenty when we were up there this year. Lots.
Yeah. Okay. Questions?
Why don't you unmute yourself over there too?
Hi, everybody. It's Alex. That's the end of Bob's talk, but he's happy to open it up to questions. So if you have any questions, you can post them in the Zoom chat or the YouTube chat. We'll wait a minute or so.
How soggy was the field after all that rain first night?
Repeat it.
Shannon just asked how soggy was the field after all that rain. It didn't seem to be a problem. The equipment was a little wet. Because even though we had it covered, it had already been rained on.
It wasn't a problem at all. It all went into my tent.
Oh yeah. Carl just said the only problem he had was all the water went into his tent. He had gallons of water inside his tent.
Yeah, that's great. It didn't work.
How many Stellafane have you been to, Bob?
I think I've been to, Dan just asked how many Stellafanes I've been to. I think it's 33.
A lot.
Not very close to 50 though. Anything else, Alex?
No questions from anybody.
Okay.
All right. Well, if there's no questions, thanks everybody for joining. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Cal, for giving their talks remotely, and catch everybody here. September is Zoom only, right?
Yeah, and but we may do it from here again too.
Okay.
So
All right. So
this worked.
all right. So we made things work despite some technical obstacles. We'll certainly be doing Zoom again next month, and we'll let you know if being in person. So thanks everybody. Have a good night and happy stars.
Thank you all.